Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair aboard the USS Liberty, watching the stars drift past through the main screen. The exploration vessel had been patrolling the outer rim for 3 months without any excitement. Most of his crew preferred it that way. Space was big and dangerous enough without looking for trouble. The ship's bridge hummed quietly with the usual sounds of a working vessel. Amy Walsh monitored communications from her station while Ryan Brooks kept watch over the tactical displays. It was just another routine day in the void between worlds. Then the emergency alarm shattered the peaceful silence. Amy's hands flew over her controls as multiple warning lights flashed red across her console. "Captain, I'm receiving a distress signal. It's coming from New Geneva Research Station." Jake leaned forward in his chair. New Geneva was supposed to be safe. The research station sat deep in Zalani Republic space, protected by treaties and distance from any known threats. "Put it through, Amy." The main screen flickered and static filled the bridge. Through the interference, a woman's voice came through clearly, though strained with fear and exhaustion. "This is Dr. Lisa Carter at New Geneva Research Station. We are under attack. Repeat, we are under attack. The Krovic Empire has invaded Zalani space. Their fleet destroyed our orbital defenses 3 hours ago. They're bombing civilian targets. We have thousands of wounded and nowhere to run." The transmission cut to static for several seconds before Dr. Carter's voice returned. "To any human vessels receiving this message, we need immediate assistance. The Krovic forces are overwhelming everything in their path. They've already taken 4 Zalani worlds this week. Please, if you can hear this, we need help." Jake felt his stomach tighten. The Krovic Empire had been expanding aggressively for the past year, but they had never attacked this far into peaceful space before. "Amy, can you clean up that signal?" "Working on it, sir." Amy's fingers danced across her controls. The static cleared slightly, revealing more of Dr. Carter's desperate message. "The Krovic commander is broadcasting demands for complete surrender. He says humans are Deathworlders and too dangerous to be allowed freedom. He claims this attack is just the beginning of a campaign to wipe out all human colonies in this sector." Ryan looked up from his tactical station. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures in the New Geneva system. Whatever's happening there, it's big." Jake stood up and walked to Ryan's station. The tactical display showed sensor readings from long-range probes. Multiple large ships were moving through the system, far more than any normal patrol force. "How many ships are we looking at, Ryan?" "At least 50 large vessels, sir, maybe more. The sensor readings are getting interference from weapons fire and explosions." The distress signal crackled back to life. Dr. Carter's voice was weaker now, more desperate. "The station's shields are failing. They're targeting the civilian shelters. We have children here, families who came to study peaceful alien cultures. These people never hurt anyone." Jake felt anger building in his chest. The Krovic Empire was known for its brutal tactics, but attacking research stations crossed every line of civilized warfare. "Amy, get me a channel to Fleet Command. Priority Alpha." "Channel open, sir." "Fleet Command, this is Captain Morrison. Aboard the USS Liberty. We've received a distress call from New Geneva Research Station. The Krovic Empire has launched a major attack on Zalani space. Request immediate orders." The response came back quickly. Admiral Peter Kane's voice filled the bridge, calm but tense. "Captain Morrison, we've been monitoring the situation. Intelligence suggests this is the beginning of a larger Krovic offensive. They're testing our response time and commitment to protecting civilian populations." Jake gripped the back of Ryan's chair. "What are your orders, Admiral?" "Proceed to New Geneva immediately. The Second Fleet is mobilizing, but you're the closest human ship to the attack zone. Buy us time until reinforcements arrive." Ryan looked up from his console. "Sir, the Liberty is an exploration vessel. We're not equipped for major combat operations." "Admiral." Kane's voice carried the weight of command. "Captain Morrison, the Krovic believe humans are too dangerous because we come from a death world. They think our violence makes us unpredictable and threatening. Maybe it's time we showed them what that really means." The communication channel closed, leaving the bridge in tense silence. Jake looked around at his crew. These weren't hardened warriors. Amy Walsh had joined the fleet to explore new worlds and meet alien species. Ryan Brooks was a tactical analyst who preferred studying enemy patterns to fighting them. The ship's engineer, Kate Sullivan, had never fired a shot in anger. But they were human, and they wouldn't abandon innocent people to be slaughtered. Ryan, plot a course for New Geneva. Maximum speed. Course laid in, sir. Amy, send word to all human ships in this sector. Tell them we're responding to the attack and could use any assistance they can provide. Jake returned to his command chair as the USS Liberty changed course toward the battle zone. Through the main screen, the stars shifted as the ship accelerated toward New Geneva system. Dr. Carter's voice came through the speakers one more time, weaker and filled with static. To any human ships out there, please hurry. The Krovic are preparing to land ground troops. Once they take the surface installations, there won't be anywhere left to hide. Jake stared at the screen as hyperspace opened before them. The Liberty was just one small ship against an enemy fleet, but sometimes that was enough. Sometimes one ship could make all the difference between victory and defeat, between life and death for thousands of innocent people. The ship jumped into hyperspace, racing toward a battle that would change everything. The USS Liberty dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the New Geneva system. What Jake Morrison saw on the main screen made his blood run cold. Dozens of burning ship hulks drifted through space like broken toys. The peaceful blue world of New Geneva was scarred with fire and smoke from orbital bombardment. Captain, I'm reading multiple ships approaching our position, Ryan Brooks called out from his tactical station. They're not Krovic signatures. Put them on screen, Jake ordered. The main screen showed a group of damaged vessels limping away from the inner system. Their hulls were blackened and torn. Some had gaping holes in their sides. These were refugee ships, packed with survivors, fleeing the attack. Amy, hail the lead vessel. Channel open, sir. A tired voice responded immediately. Unknown human ship. This is Captain Lisa Taylor aboard the Zelani transport New Hope. Thank the stars you're here. Are you here to help? This is Captain Morrison of the USS Liberty. We received the distress call from New Geneva. What's your status? We evacuated as many civilians as we could before the Krovic landing forces arrived. We have over 3,000 refugees aboard 5 ships. Many are wounded. We need medical supplies and safe harbor. Jake felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. 3,000 lives depending on decisions he made in the next few minutes. Bring your ships alongside, Captain Taylor. We'll transfer medical supplies and tend to your wounded. Within an hour, the Liberty's cargo bays were filled with injured Zelani civilians. Dr. Alex Cooper worked alongside the ship's medical team to treat burns, broken bones, and worse injuries from the bombardment. The ship's corridors echoed with the sounds of pain and fear in a dozen alien languages. Jake found Captain Taylor in the main medical bay, helping treat wounded children. She was a tall woman with blue-gray skin and large dark eyes, typical of the Zelani species. Her uniform was torn and stained with blood. Captain Taylor, I need to know what we're facing at New Geneva. How many Krovic ships are in the system? Lisa Taylor looked up from bandaging a small child's arm. At least 200 warships, maybe more. They have something new with them. Creatures that can control minds. They call them Vorthak. Mind control? Jake felt a chill run down his spine. The Vorthak attach themselves to the nervous system of other species. Once attached, they control everything the host does. We watched entire Zelani defense crews turn their weapons on their own people. Dr. Cooper overheard the conversation and approached them. Captain, I need to examine one of these Vorthak creatures. If they're using biological weapons, we need to understand how they work. There are several dead ones in our cargo hold, Captain Taylor said. The creatures die when their host is killed, but they're difficult to remove from living subjects. Jake followed Dr. Cooper to the Zelani ship's cargo bay. The dead Vorthak looked like giant spiders with too many legs and a bulbous head filled with needle-sharp appendages. Cooper scanned one with his medical tricorder. Fascinating. These creatures are parasites, but they're also highly sophisticated. They tap directly into the host's brainstem and nervous system. But look at this. Cooper pointed to readings on his scanner. They require a very specific chemical environment to survive. High stress hormones, elevated heart rate, and adrenaline actually seem to be toxic to them. What does that mean? Jake asked. It means humans might be naturally immune to their control. Our fight-or-flight response creates exactly the chemical conditions that kill these parasites. Jake felt the first spark of hope since receiving the distress call. Can we use that somehow? I need more time to study them, but yes, I think we can develop a counterweapon. Back on the Liberty's bridge, Amy Walsh was monitoring enemy communications. Captain, I'm picking up Krovic transmissions from the inner system. They're talking about something called the final solution for the Deathworlder problem. Jake took his command chair. What are they saying exactly? The Krovic commander is reporting to his superiors. He says the attack on New Geneva is just the first step. They plan to use it as a staging area for a direct assault on Earth itself. The bridge fell silent. An attack on Earth meant billions of human lives at risk. Jake felt anger burning in his chest, but he forced himself to stay calm and think clearly. Ryan, what's our tactical situation? We're outnumbered about 50-1, sir. The Liberty has good shields and weapons for an exploration vessel, but we're not a warship. Amy, any word from the Second Fleet? Admiral Kane reports they're still 6 hours out minimum. We're on our own until then. Jake stood up and walked to the main screen, looking at the distant glow of New Geneva. Somewhere on that world, Dr. Lisa Carter and thousands of other humans and aliens were hiding from Krovic ground forces. Somewhere in that system, 200 enemy warships were preparing to launch an attack that could destroy Earth. Captain, Dr. Cooper called out over the intercom. I think I found something important about these Vorthak creatures. Can you come to the lab? Jake made his way to the ship's small laboratory, where Cooper was studying tissue samples from the dead parasites. The good news is that I was right about human immunity. Our natural stress response creates a chemical environment that's lethal to the Vorthak. The bad news is that they've been studying human physiology for months, maybe years. How do you know that? Cooper pulled up data on his computer screen. These creatures have been modified. Someone has been experimenting on them, trying to make them more resistant to human brain chemistry. They haven't succeeded yet, but they're getting closer. Jake felt the pieces of a larger picture falling into place. The Krovic have been planning this attack for a long time. They know we're coming. There's more, Cooper continued. I found traces of human DNA in the parasites' digestive systems. They've been feeding them human tissue to help them adapt. The implications hit Jake like a physical blow. The Krovic had been capturing humans probably for months, using them as test subjects to develop weapons specifically designed to control human minds. How many humans would they need for this kind of research? Jake asked. Dozens, maybe hundreds, and they'd need fresh subjects regularly for testing. Jake turned toward the bridge. If the Krovic had been capturing humans for experimentation, there might be survivors being held prisoner. The rescue mission had just become more complicated and more urgent. Amy, get me Admiral Kane on Priority Channel. He needs to know what we're dealing with here. The USS Liberty continued toward New Geneva, carrying refugees, medical supplies, and the first real intelligence about the enemy's true plans. The battle ahead would be more than just a fight for one research station. It would be a fight for the future of humanity itself. The USS Liberty approached New Geneva system with 23 other human ships that had answered the distress call. They were an unlikely fleet: cargo haulers, mining vessels, and patrol ships. None of them were built for major combat, but they had come anyway. Jake Morrison stood on his bridge watching the tactical display. The Krovic fleet was massive. Over 200 warships orbited New Geneva like hungry predators. Their flagship, a giant dreadnought called the Dominator, sat at the center of the formation like a dark metal mountain. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the Krovic fleet, Amy Walsh reported. Put it on screen. The main display showed a reptilian face with cold yellow eyes and rows of sharp teeth. The Krovic commander spoke in heavily accented English, human. Vessels, you are trespassing in Krovic space. This world now belongs to the Empire. Leave immediately or be destroyed. Jake stepped forward. This is Captain Morrison of the USS Liberty. New Geneva is a civilian research station under the protection of the Galactic Peace Treaty. Your attack is a violation of interstellar law. The Krovic commander laughed, a harsh sound like breaking glass. Your treaties mean nothing to us, Deathworlder. We know what you really are. violent creatures from a savage world who pretend to be peaceful. Today we end that pretense forever. The transmission cut off. Within seconds, the Krovic fleet began moving toward the human ships. Jake felt his heart rate increase as adrenaline flooded his system. This was it. No more talking, no more warnings. Time to fight. All ships, this is Morrison. Attack pattern Delta. Stay close to the asteroid field and use it for cover. Make them come to us. The human fleet scattered into the asteroid belt that surrounded New Geneva's outer system. The rocks provided shelter from the Krovic's heavy weapons, but they also made maneuvering dangerous. One wrong move could send a ship crashing into a mountain-sized chunk of stone and metal. Lieutenant Ben Parker piloted the Liberty's fighter squadron through the asteroids with skill that amazed even veteran pilots. The small ships darted between rocks like birds, their human pilots reacting faster than any computer could calculate safe flight paths. This is Parker to all fighters. Remember your training. The Krovic expect us to fight like civilized species. They think we'll follow their rules. Let's show them how wrong they are. The first wave of Krovic fighters entered the asteroid field in perfect formation. They flew like they were on parade, maintaining exact distances and speeds. It made them easy targets for the human pilots who attacked from unexpected angles, using the asteroids as cover. Sarah Johnson dove her fighter between two spinning rocks and came up behind a group of Krovic ships. Her weapons tore through their rear shields before they could react. That's 3 down. These guys fight like robots, but the Krovic had numbers on their side. For every enemy ship the humans destroyed, 2 more took its place. Soon the asteroid field was filled with wreckage from both sides. On the Liberty's bridge, Ryan Brooks watched the tactical display with growing concern. "Captain, we're losing ships." The Defiant took heavy damage and is falling back. The cargo hauler New York is completely disabled. Jake gripped his command chair as the ship shook from enemy fire. "How long until the second fleet arrives?" "Still 4 hours, sir." "We don't have 4 hours." Jake made a decision that would either save lives or get them all killed. "All ships form up on the Liberty. We're going to make a run at their flagship." Amy looked up from her station in shock. "Sir, the Dominator has shields that could stop a battleship. We're just exploration and cargo vessels." "That's exactly why it might work. They won't expect a direct assault from ships like ours." The human fleet came together in a loose formation and accelerated toward the center of the Krovic fleet. Enemy ships moved to intercept them, but the humans were already inside the defensive perimeter. "Parker, take your fighters and hit their shield generators. Everyone else, concentrate fire on the Dominator's main weapons." The human ships opened fire with everything they had. Mining lasers designed to cut through asteroids burned into Krovic armor. Cargo tractors normally used for moving freight grabbed enemy fighters and threw them into each other. It was chaos, but it was human chaos. The Krovic commander appeared on screen again, his yellow eyes wide with surprise. "Impossible. No civilized species fights like this. You attack without formation, without order." "That's because we're not civilized," Jake replied. "We're from a death world, remember?" The battle raged around the massive dreadnought. Human ships took terrible damage, but they kept fighting. The mining vessel Denver used its rock-crushing equipment to tear apart a Krovic cruiser's hull. The Kriki transport Phoenix rammed an enemy destroyer rather than let it escape. But then the Vorthak-controlled ships arrived. These vessels moved differently, unpredictably. They were crewed by aliens whose minds had been taken over by the parasites. They attacked with kamikaze tactics that no sane pilot would attempt. The patrol ship Houston tried to avoid a controlled vessel that was clearly on a collision course. The infected ship exploded against the Houston's hull, taking both vessels and their crews into the void. "Captain, we're reading mind-controlled ships throughout their fleet," Ryan reported. "They're using them as suicide weapons." Jake felt sick. Those ships were crewed by innocent aliens whose minds had been stolen by the parasites. Every ship that attacked them meant more deaths of people who had never chosen to fight. Dr. Cooper's voice came over the intercom. "Captain, I've finished my analysis of the Vorthak samples. I think I can build a sonic disruptor that will interfere with their neural control." "How long do you need?" 20 minutes to build a prototype, but I'll need to get close to a controlled ship to test it." Jake looked at the tactical display. The human fleet was taking heavy casualties. Ships were burning and dying all around them. But if Cooper was right, they might have found a way to turn the tide. Do it, Doc. Ryan, get me a list of the most damaged human ships. We're going to need volunteers for a very dangerous mission. The USS Liberty continued its attack run on the Dominator, while Cooper worked frantically in his lab. Around them, the space battle reached its peak intensity. Human ships fought with courage and desperation against overwhelming odds. In the distance, more Krovic reinforcements were arriving. The enemy was bringing everything they had to crush the small human fleet. But Jake Morrison had one advantage the Krovic commander didn't understand. Humans didn't know when to quit. Dr. Alex Cooper finished building his sonic disruptor just as another Vorthak-controlled ship exploded against the Liberty's shields. The device looked simple, a metal box with wire coils and a small power cell. But if it worked, it could save thousands of lives. "Captain, the prototype is ready," Cooper called over the intercom. "But I need to test it on a controlled ship to see if it actually works." Jake Morrison looked at the tactical display. 3 more human ships had been destroyed in the last 10 minutes. The cargo hauler Seattle was drifting with its engines dead. The patrol boat Miami was fighting fires on multiple decks. They were running out of time and ships. "Amy, hail the damaged transport New Hope. Ask Captain Taylor if she's willing to try something desperate." Within minutes, Lisa Taylor's voice came through the speakers. "Captain Morrison will try anything. Our shields are almost gone and we can't outrun those suicide ships much longer. We're going to beam over a device that might free the controlled crews, but you'll need to get very close to one of those ships." "How close?" Cooper checked his readings. "Within 50 meters. The sonic pulse has a limited range." There was silence on the channel for several seconds. Everyone knew it was almost a suicide mission. Getting that close to a Vorthak-controlled ship meant risking everything. "We'll do it," Taylor finally said. "Send over your device." The transport New Hope changed course toward a controlled Krovic cruiser that was preparing to ram the mining vessel Denver. The transport's engines strained as it accelerated to intercept. Jake watched through the Liberty's sensors as the New Hope closed the distance. 50 meters, 40, 30. The controlled cruiser turned toward the transport, ready to destroy both ships in one explosion. Cooper activated the sonic disruptor. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The controlled cruiser suddenly stopped its attack run and began spinning wildly through space. Its weapons fired randomly in all directions as the crew inside fought to regain control of their own minds. "It's working," Cooper shouted. "The Vorthak parasites are dying. The sonic frequency disrupts their neural connections." Jake felt hope surge through him. "Amy, broadcast that frequency on all channels. Every ship with a sonic array needs to start transmitting immediately." Within minutes, human ships throughout the battle zone began broadcasting the anti-Vorthak frequency. The effect spread like a wave through the enemy fleet. Controlled ships stopped their kamikaze attacks and began fighting against their Krovic masters instead. A Zelani cruiser that had been controlled for weeks suddenly opened fire on the Krovic ships around it. The crew's own voices came over the radio, speaking in their native language, thanking the humans for freeing them from the nightmare of mental slavery. But the battle was far from over. The Krovic flagship Dominator launched its own fighter squadrons, hundreds of small, fast ships that swarmed toward the human fleet like angry insects. Lieutenant Ben Parker led the human fighters to meet them. "All pilots, remember what we learned in training. These guys think like machines. They expect us to follow the rules of space combat. Let's show them what chaos really looks like." The dogfight that followed was unlike anything in recorded military history. Human pilots used tactics that no sane pilot would attempt. Sarah Johnson flew her fighter backward while shooting at pursuing enemies. Rick Foster used his ship's gravity manipulation to create artificial asteroid fields that confused enemy targeting systems. The Krovic pilots, trained for precise formations and calculated attacks, couldn't adapt to the wild unpredictability of human combat flying. Within 30 minutes, the enemy fighter force was scattered and broken. On the Dominator's bridge, Warlord Thax watched his carefully planned battle falling apart. The Deathworlders were fighting in ways that violated every principle of civilized warfare. Worse, they were winning. Activate the planetary bombardment weapons, he ordered. If we cannot control this system, we will destroy it completely. Massive energy cannons emerged from the Dominator's hull and began charging. The weapons were designed to crack planets, not fight ships. If they fired on New Geneva, millions of civilians would die in the first attack. Jake saw the weapons charging on his tactical display. All ships concentrate fire on those bombardment cannons. We cannot let them fire on the planet. The human fleet turned every weapon they had toward the Dominator. Mining lasers, cargo tractors, even emergency cutting. Tools. Everything that could damage the massive dreadnought. But the ship's shields were too strong. The weapons continued charging. That's when the second fleet arrived. Admiral Linda Rogers brought 30 military warships out of hyperspace right on top of the Krovik formation. These weren't exploration vessels or cargo ships. These were purpose-built warships with crews trained for major combat operations. This is Admiral Rogers to all human vessels. We're here to finish what you started. Excellent work holding the line. The military ships opened fire with weapons designed to destroy other warships. The Krovik fleet, already damaged and demoralized by the first battle, began to retreat toward the outer system. But Warlord Thakix wasn't finished. Rather than face defeat, he activated the Dominator's self-destruct sequence. The massive ship would explode with enough force to destroy everything within 100,000 kilometers. All ships, emergency retreat, Admiral Rogers ordered. That dreadnought is going to blow. Jake looked at his tactical display and saw something that made his blood freeze. The transport New Hope was too close to the Dominator and too damaged to escape the blast radius. Captain Taylor and 3,000 refugees were trapped. Ryan, can we get a tractor beam on the New Hope? Not from this distance, sir. We'd have to get closer to the Dominator than the safe retreat distance. Jake made another decision that would either save lives or kill his entire crew. Amy, tell Admiral Rogers we're attempting a rescue. Ryan, full power to engines, take us toward that dreadnought. The USS Liberty turned toward the dying Dominator as every other ship in the system fled in the opposite direction. The massive warship was already beginning to tear itself apart as its antimatter containment systems failed. Captain, we have maybe 3 minutes before that ship explodes, Cooper reported from his station. Then we better work fast. Ryan, lock onto the New Hope with everything we've got. Amy, tell Captain Taylor to prepare for emergency transport. The Liberty's tractor beam reached out through the chaos and grabbed the damaged transport. The ship's engines screamed as they fought to pull both vessels away from the expanding destruction of the Dominator. Behind them, the Krovik dreadnought exploded like a newborn star. The blast wave caught the Liberty's rear shields and sent both ships tumbling through space. But they were alive, and 3,000 refugees were safe. The remaining Krovik ships, leaderless and demoralized, surrendered or fled the system. The battle for New Geneva was over, but the cost had been terrible. Nearly half the human ships that answered the distress call would never return home. The explosion of the Dominator lit up the New Geneva system like a second sun. The blast was so bright that people on the planet's surface could see it through the daytime sky. For a moment, space itself seemed to burn with white-hot fire. Captain Jake Morrison picked himself up from the Liberty's deck where the shock wave had thrown him. Around the bridge, his crew was doing the same. The ship's lights flickered as damaged systems tried to restart themselves. Damage report, Jake called. Ryan Brooks checked his console with shaking hands. Hull breach on Deck 7, but the emergency seals are holding. We lost our main sensor array and half our weapons are offline. But we're alive, sir. Amy Walsh looked up from her communication station with tears in her eyes. Captain, I'm getting signals from all over the system. The remaining Krovik ships are surrendering. The freed alien crews are joining together to hunt down the ships that still have Vorthak controllers. Jake felt relief wash over him like cold water. They had done it. Against impossible odds, the human fleet had won. But the victory felt hollow when he thought about all the ships that wouldn't be going home. Amy, get me a count of our losses. The numbers were hard to hear. Of the 24 human ships that had answered the distress call, only 15 were still operational. The cargo hauler Denver was gone, destroyed when its crew rammed a Krovik battleship to save a group of refugees. The patrol boat Miami had been torn apart by enemy fire while protecting damaged civilian vessels. 9 ships and over 300 human lives lost in a single battle. But they had saved New Geneva. And more importantly, they had stopped the Krovic advance toward Earth. Dr. Alex Cooper's voice came over the intercom. "Captain, you need to see what we found in the wreckage of the Dominator." Jake made his way to the cargo bay where Cooper was, examining debris that the Liberty salvage team had collected. Among the twisted metal and broken electronics were several stasis pods, the kind used for long-term prisoner transport. "We found 12 pods in the wreckage, all with human occupants," Cooper explained. "They're alive, but they've been subjected to extensive medical experimentation." Jake felt anger burn in his chest again. The Krovic had been using captured humans as test subjects for their Vorthak research. "Can you help them?" "Most of them, yes. But it's going to take time and care. These people have been through hell." One of the stasis pods opened with a hiss of escaping gas. A man in his 30s sat up slowly, his eyes unfocused and confused. Jake recognized him immediately from intelligence files. "Commander Paul Baker," Jake said. "You've been listed as missing. In action for 2 years." Baker looked around the cargo bay with the dazed expression of someone waking from a nightmare. "Where am I? What happened to my ship?" "You're safe now, Commander. You're aboard the USS Liberty. The Krovic held you prisoner, but we got you out." Baker's memory seemed to clear gradually. "They were using us to test those things, the parasites. They wanted to know how to control human minds." He shuddered. Thank God they never figured it out. Jake helped Baker to his feet. "They won't get the chance now. We destroyed their research and their fleet." Over the next few hours, the Liberty and the other surviving ships worked to rescue civilians from New Geneva's surface and provide medical aid to the wounded. The planet's cities were damaged but not destroyed. Thousands of lives had been saved by the human intervention. Dr. Lisa Carter, the researcher who had sent the original distress call, was among the survivors. She met Jake in the Liberty's main conference room, her arm in a sling but her spirit unbroken. "Captain Morrison, I don't know how to thank you. When I sent that message, I never expected anyone to actually come, especially not against odds like these." Jake poured her a cup of coffee from the ship's small supply. "Doctor, when humans hear a call for help, we answer. That's just who we are. The Krovic called you Deathworlders. They said you were too violent and dangerous to be trusted." "Maybe we are dangerous," Jake replied. "But we're dangerous to the right people. We don't attack peaceful researchers or enslave other species. We fight bullies and tyrants." Admiral Linda Rogers contacted the Liberty as the rescue operations continued. Her face on the main screen looked tired but satisfied. "Captain Morrison, I want you to know that your actions here today probably saved Earth itself. Intelligence reports suggest the Krovic were planning to use New Geneva as a staging area for an assault on human space. What's the status of the Krovic Empire, Admiral?" "Falling apart. News of their defeat here has reached their other conquered worlds. Rebellions are starting everywhere. Species that were enslaved by the Vorthak are fighting for their freedom. The Empire won't survive this." 3 days later, the Liberty and the other surviving ships began the journey home. They carried with them the rescued prisoners, thousands of grateful refugees, and something even more valuable: proof that humans weren't the monsters their enemies claimed they were. Jake stood on the bridge watching the stars as the ship traveled through hyperspace. Amy Walsh approached him with a message pad. "Captain, we're receiving communications from dozens of alien species. They want to establish diplomatic contact with humanity. They're calling us the Liberators." Jake smiled for the first time since the battle began. "I like that better than Deathworlders." 6 months later, Jake Morrison stood in the command center of the new USS Defiance, a ship built with technology shared by humanity's new alien allies. His crew included not just humans, but Zelani, freed Krovic slaves, and members of a dozen other species. The galaxy had learned an important lesson at New Geneva. Humans were indeed from a death world, shaped by violence and struggle. But they used that strength to protect the weak, not to conquer them. They were dangerous to those who threatened innocent lives, but they were also the best friends that peaceful species could hope to have. The term Deathworlder was still used throughout the galaxy, but now it carried a different meaning. It meant Someone who would travel across the void to answer a distress call. Someone who would fight impossible odds to save strangers. Someone who would sacrifice everything to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. And in a galaxy full of dangers, that was exactly the kind of friend everyone needed.